It's the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 201. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. We're talking Golden Gopher football again this week as Minnesota continues to gear up for the Rate Bowl in Phoenix on December 26th. They'll leave on Sunday and prep all week in Arizona. New Mexico's the opponent. We don't know much about the 9-3 Lobos, so we've asked Daniel House, the Gophers Guru from gophersguru.com, to give us insight. He's broken down the film. He knows the personnel. He'll give us the full breakdown. He's the best, and I know you'll enjoy hearing from him this week. Our Go Gopher podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Longtime Gopher sports supporter Cub is a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher podcast with Mike Grimm. In a hurry? Don't worry. Cub delivers. Get fresh meat, produce, everyday essentials, and more delivered to your door. Cub is the official grocer of the Golden Gophers and proud to support Gopher athletics for over 20 years. Shop happy. The Go Gopher podcast also sponsored by onX Maps. Find out how to download the onX Fish app for free by listening to the Go Gopher podcast. We're podcasting episode 201 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We also invite you to subscribe to or follow the Go Gopher podcast. It's free to do so. You can also go back and listen to the Go Gopher podcast from previous weeks. Last episode, for example, we had a headliner. Gopher quarterback Drake Lindsey joined us. He previewed the Rate Bowl. He told us he was coming back to play for the Gophers in 2026. And interestingly, he gave some insight into his family's relationship in Arkansas with Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. A fantastic podcast, still timely. So if you missed it, go back and have a listen. This week, it's more Golden Gopher football talk. You're going to love it. We continue to preview the Rate Bowl. We have our buddy Daniel House from gophersguru.com. Mr. House will join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
Best get it right, pass me the cheese, more Gouda please, loin or a roast, up to the host, pour me a slush, never enough. If you have major mouths to feed, Cup has got food for your every need. Happy, happy, happy Christmas, happy, 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 happy Christmas.
This season, don't just shop. Shop Cub and shop happy. Holidays.
Shop Chuckily, shop Cheesily, shop Blissfully, shop Cubbily, shop happy.
It's episode number 201. We're talking Golden Gopher football with the Gophers Guru Daniel House. Our pleasure is always to welcome Daniel House back to the podcast. He's always full of insight and intel. His webpage, gophersguru.com, daily has great content, and he has broken down the New Mexico Lobos very well. In fact, I'm not sure Gopher fans, Daniel House, have a great idea of what this New Mexico team's all about, and I saw your content and said, let's have Daniel on the podcast this week so we can let everybody know what kind of a football game this might be. We're recording on Friday, December the 19th. 1 week from today as we record, it'll be the Rate Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona, the Gophers and the Lobos at Chase Field on Friday, December 26th. Great to see you, Mr. Daniel House.
Good to see you, Grimmer. Bowl game season, Rate Bowl. Gosh, we got bowl games on in the morning now. I mean, this is true bowl season.
Yeah, nothing wrong with football every day here for a few weeks, that's for sure. You have taken a bit of a deep dive into this New Mexico team. Before we get into specifics, what should Gopher fans generally know about the 9-3 2025 New Mexico Lobos?
Jason X done an incredible job at New Mexico. You look at their attendance alone, had one of the largest attendance increases in the country this year. This is a program that, notoriously hasn't been great in football. So he's created a lot of momentum and energy around their program and kind of revitalized how people view them. I think, you watch them play, they're fundamentally sound, both sides of the ball, well coached, very creative team. I think that's the takeaway. There's going to be some stuff in this game that you're not ready for because they're going to be all out. They know they haven't been to a bowl game for a while. So they're like, hey, this is a high level bowl game against a Big Ten team. Even Jason X said he hasn't coached in a bowl game since 2002. And that's because he's been down at lower levels. I mean, he's been at Mankato and South Dakota State. He was the OC, that 2019 team that played Minnesota up here. So I think that people need to appreciate Todd Hoffner down at Minnesota State. I mean, he's got a lot of coaches that are coaching in college football right now, like Clanderman, the DC, Jason Eck. Like you go back and look at his tree, it's quite impressive. But you better be ready. You got to put your jersey on for full 60 against Jason Eck team because they're well coached.
Yeah, no doubt. He was at Winona State for a minute too, and you think about David Braun, who had a Winona State connection. So the Warriors.
Tom Sawyer.
Yeah,
Tom Sawyer. He's a Barron, Wisconsin guy. So
there
he
you
was
are.
in the same high school I did. So
no doubt,
good coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of connections there with Jason Eck. Played for the Badgers, so we don't like him for that, of course. But you come from that Barry Alvarez coaching tree, and he was an offensive lineman, so we know he probably likes, to have some big guys up front as well. I think generally the nation and some casual Gopher fans are probably like, well, this isn't that attractive of a matchup. It's a group of 5 against a Big Ten. The Big Ten team should roll. And who knows? There's no guarantee. Maybe they will. The Gophers should have a bit of a talent gap there. But this should be, I think, a pretty good football game, right? I mean, this New Mexico team, as you just said, has won. They have a win over a Big Ten team already this year, beating UCLA. So I think people shouldn't be lulled to sleep by this matchup. I actually think this could be one of the better bowl games of the season.
You look at the Michigan game too, going into the hostile environment, and they were pretty competitive at points of that game. I mean,
right off the bat,
they got
right?
behind, but they pushed back and were in the game the whole time. So I mean, that's pretty impressive in your first year leading a program, being able to use the portal and find players and kind of mine through all the options that are out there and install your scheme and adapt it to the strengths of your players. But I think that comes back to the creativity piece. And I think that's what fans will notice is this should be a pretty interesting game just because it'll be a coaching chess match. There's going to be some adjustments that have to be made because you have ample time. Both teams have a lot of time to prepare. And I think that's what has helped Minnesota in these bowl games is they kind of have an approach for how they study, prepare, and implement game plans. Their personnel will be a little bit different because of some younger guys in roles. The same thing can be said about New Mexico as well. So I think the line right now I saw was like 2.5 in favor of Minnesota. I mean, Vegas feels like this is going to be a fun game as well. So I don't know. People that maybe don't watch the Mountain West didn't see the level that New Mexico played at, but you see New Mexico, San Diego State, those were the 2 teams in that conference this year. And they played a heck of a game that went to overtime at the end of the season. And I watched that game and I'm like, man, that was fun to watch. 2 very good teams. So I'm excited for this game too.
Yeah, and not that the transitive property works, but you're talking Mountain West. Remember, San Diego State whipped that Cal team the week after the Gophers lost out there. So, not that the transitive property works, but that should get somebody's attention. I think that this could be a pretty good game. That you mentioned he hasn't coached in a bowl game, Jason X, since 2002. I think the Lobos have been now 10 seasons not in a bowl game, and their previous 4 appearances were all in the New Mexico Bowl. So this is the first time in like 20 years they've left their own state to go to a game, and it's 6 hours from their campus. They're going to be a lot of fans in this Chase Field next week, a week from today as we record. Not that it'll be a road game necessarily for the Gophers, but it won't be like West Virginia when there were maybe 800 West Virginia fans there the last time they played down there in 2021. This will be a great atmosphere.
It will be a good atmosphere, and I know Jason X challenged the fans to try to get 10,000 to go. So he was selling it that they can get up the morning of and drive 6 hours. So, I mean, the fans are hyped up in New Mexico. Like you said, they haven't had this type of success in a season in quite some time. So to be able to play in a bowl game that you wouldn't anticipate being able to go to, because you had a couple of opt-outs with the Big 12 and, Iowa State, Kansas State, you get thrust up into a bigger bowl. And man, this is big time for these players. A lot of these guys, they're going to play because they're going, hey, I can show myself against a Big Ten team and maybe get some great portal offers. So, there's a lot at play for a team like this to get this opportunity to play against elevated competition.
Yeah, total sidebar to this. We saw the success that Richard Pitino had at New Mexico in basketball, selling out the pit night after night, and Steve Alford had some success. New Mexico is known, more for basketball than football. But total sidebar, I am a little surprised that the new Pac-12 did not include New Mexico and an invite, because that is, that's the flagship of that university. The geography fits. It's right next to Texas. It's right next to Arizona. There's teams there. And I don't know the answer as to what was unattractive about New Mexico, but it seems to me that the flagship university of that state, with the success they've had, particularly in basketball, would have been an attractive new Big 12 or Pac-12 member.
Well, yeah, and the pit is such a great environment for college basketball. Their fan base is passionate. It's underrated spot, and that's kind of, I've always said New Mexico is a destination where coaches go, especially in college basketball, where they go to revive their career or die off.
Yeah.
And we've witnessed that a lot. In football now, Jason Eck's done something that nobody's done there. Nobody's been able to achieve at this level in the modern era. So I think it's impressive. I feel like he'll be a guy that gets a huge E4 opportunity here very soon. I thought maybe it'd be this year. We still got some jobs open. There still could be some hysteria taking place. So, you just never know, but I think he's a good coach.
Yeah, it could definitely be trickle-down effect as well. Daniel House, GophersGuru.com. How did Eck flip this thing so quickly? As we mentioned, it's been 10 seasons since they've been in a bowl game, 9-3 this year. And you mentioned that Michigan game. That was an opener. I mean, it's first-year coach, first game of the season, and they're pretty competitive in the Big House. So what do you see that he was able to make this rise with this program?
Well, you look at teams that are able to hit the ground running when they make a new head coach hire. A lot of times they're bringing players with them that were at the previous stop. So he's able to bring some core Idaho football players to New Mexico that already knew the system, that had developed up. Keyshawn James Newby, a pass rusher #1. Keep an eye on him. He's a mismatch weapon. He has been one of the best players in the G5 this year. Was productive at Idaho, came here, productive again. So you look at these career arcs of these players, it doesn't even almost matter the level. As long as they've been productive, they tend to translate well. Jackson Eck, a linebacker, one of the most disruptive and, productive linebackers in the G5 as well. Austin Brawley came back late. He was big in that San Diego State game. He was with Spence Nowinski, their DC at Ohio previously. So you look at that blended with the transfer portal and knowing okay, what type of things fit our system? What do we want to do? Have a three-headed monster in the background. They're creative in the run game. I just think that it was very intentional in how they do stuff, and then coaching guys up with very good fundamentals. I mean, that's the takeaway when you watch these guys play on both sides of the ball. They're well coached.
What you mentioned creativity in their offensive system. One of the first things you said when I said generally tell us about them. So let's go a little more specific. What do you mean by creativity, and what are Gopher fans going to see when they see the Lobos with the football?
Yeah, get ready for a lot of different run game looks, pulling guys, they'll run some of that zone blocking scheme. They're going to try to get the defense misaligned with a lot of different things like eye candy, motioning, lining up in different formations. They've had a 6-0L package that they've had in with a full lineman lined up in the backfield as a fullback, motioning out, kind of like what Penn State did with Kotelnicki for a while there, where they'd, motion a lineman across. They do a lot of stuff that, just tries to mess with the defense, get you misaligned. And I think that's something that Minnesota at times this year has had some trouble with, is getting lined up versus a lot of different groupings. So I'm anticipating they're going to have to adjust on the fly to a lot of different stuff, a lot of creative packages, formations, alignment groupings, but they really mix the play action game. They got a good RPO package too. So, it's kind of tough to know whether they're going to hand it a throw and the quarterback can run Jack Lane. He's got a little bit of quarterback run ability. So that's another thing you've got to defend for. But I think the best player on their offense is Dorian Thomas, outstanding player. I mean, he is just he's a fluid mover. He has great hands. He can get position on the ball. They feature him a lot in the specific route designs that are designed to get him open. Multi-tight end sets are a big thing in what they do offensively, which I think is advantageous, especially based on the type of personnel that they have. You saw like the creative, like snapping the ball between the quarterback's legs and throwing the ball at Michigan, like all these different like creative wrinkles that Eck has. I know like there's going to be something within the first like 10 minutes of this game that he does that it's like, okay, he's pulling out all the stops here.
Yeah, and I think it should be fun because over the years, PJ Fleck in bowl games too has pulled a few trick plays here. They had a throwback to Lindsey last year. They had the Dragon Kesich attempt on a 2-point conversion up in Detroit. Annexstead came in as a holder. The receiver Annexstead, Brock Annexstead, came in as a holder and had a 2-point conversion in a game. So in a bowl game, I think that, and then Faalele scored a touchdown on that field, right, a few years ago in Arizona. So PJ's also brought a few things, and I know PJ this week in the news conference and then on our coaches show as well said in referencing New Mexico that his defense is going to have to be ready. And special teams too, like could there be a fake punt, a trick, fake field goal, a trick play, on a punt return, could they do the old, whatever. So I think both teams will probably have to adjust and be on their toes here in this one, as most bowl teams probably need to do.
Yeah, and I think that's really the case here because New Mexico, they're like, hey, what do we have to lose? This is a big game. We're playing on a big stage, opportunity to really springboard the program, get them a lot of momentum. And the same thing can be said about Minnesota. I think Flex coached the bowl games, where he's like, hey, let's just go out and do some fun stuff, have fun. It's kind of, he treats it like it's kind of the reward for the season is the bowl game and springboarding into the next season, which, the bowl games, it's a whole different conversation. It's so different now.
Yeah.
Opt-outs, transfer portal, who's going to be available. It's got to be tough to scheme these games. Like I'm sitting here, well, is this guy going to play? Is this guy going to play? Is this guy going to play? Like that's for every bowl game now except the CFP. So I just think that it's going to require a lot of adjustment back and forth.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's why, and PJ Fleck has always been kind of quiet on injuries during the regular season and what have you. But in the bowl game, they've been pretty good at keeping everything under wraps, including for the radio guy who sometimes isn't sure who's in or out up until kickoff of those bowl games too. And I'm sure it's because they feel there might be an advantage, a competitive advantage in leaving the other team in the dark in terms of, do we have to prepare for Anthony Smith or do we not have to prepare for Anthony Smith? And at this point, who knows, right? They're keeping it very quiet and probably smart and wise to do so.
And X just like, I think everybody's going to play. It's just like backyard ball, baby. New Mexico, we made a big bowl game. We're just excited to be there. I think it's funny to watch Eck in the press conferences. Like you could tell he's excited. He said he's used all the bowl prep, stuff that Barry Alvarez had implemented at Wisconsin to kind of get ready for this bowl game. So he definitely leans on the early days of Barry, and God, his coaching journey is just fascinating. And then like, we didn't even mention like Luke Schleusner, their offensive coordinator, grew up in Menominee, Wisconsin, so close by. Spence Nowinski, he grew up in Holly, Wisconsin. First job was at Lake Crystal, Minnesota as a high school coach.
Wow.
So there's a lot of ties locally to this coaching staff in the Midwest. So it's helped them a lot with, continuity as a staff.
Well, you mentioned or gave us all the details on offense. You just mentioned their defensive coordinator, Spence Nowinski. Tell us about their defense, New Mexico plays.
Always had a lot of respect for Spence Nowinski. I think he's a guy that eventually here will probably get a P4 defensive coordinator job. I know when Minnesota had an opening previously when they hired Heatherman, I thought maybe Nowinski would be a good option. He's someone that I've had my eyes on for a while. Very active, disruptive defense that mix things up with some D-line stunts. So they'll like show they're going to potentially blitz and then they'll drop and end and send a linebacker instead. So it looks like they're going to blitz, but they're only sending 4. You'll get some blitzes from time to time. They'll really mix up the zones in the back end, trying to get you to maybe make a mistake. They'll buzz a safety down and you got to be ready for that late rotation or you could potentially put the ball in harm's way. I think they play with very good block deconstruction and hand technique along their defensive line. Like they really shock you So your fundamentals on the offensive line have to be on point, and your eyes have to be in the right spot because they're constantly, moving stuff around and very, very active defense. So I think Spence is one of those guys that is, he was at Ohio for a while, had super, super efficient defenses there, had a short stint at Memphis, then, comes out here with Eck to New Mexico. And I'm almost thinking he views it kind of like, okay, this is a good spot to be because Eck will eventually elevate up to a P4. And then, hey, we've got continuity as a staff and can kind of build off of that. So I think this is a game where Minnesota's offensive line has to communicate really well. Everyone has to be on the same page and see the field well because they're going to mix things up. And they've had a lot of time to get ready, a lot of time to study. There's going to be some new stuff, and he's another. I think creative's the word that I would use for this whole staff. He checks that box as well.
They have a good pass rush. Like they have obviously a bunch of good pass rushers, but they have one in particular that caught your eye.
Yeah, Keyshawn James Newby is a mismatch, man. He's twitchy, he's athletic, he can move side to side, bend around the corner, has a good mix of different rushes in the bag. He was productive at Idaho too, and so I think him sliding into this defensive system, it was an outstanding fit for him. And someone that every game you watch, every team has got to have schematic attention shifted toward him because he's the big, big weapon on that defensive side of the ball. And then Jackson Eck, Jason's son, linebacker, who had a lot of interest in the transfer portal to go P4. I mean, you watch his tape and you go, this guy could be playing at the highest level, but he wanted to follow and play with his dad again. And he knows that if he produces at that level, the talent, if he wants to play in the NFL, they'll find you somewhere. So, it was kind of cool that he chose to play with his dad and valued the family piece, even with a lot of significant offers and probably more money to play elsewhere.
Yeah, wow. And then they have Austin Brawley, who missed some of the year, but a safety that, assuming he's going to play in the bowl game, can be a difference maker too.
Yeah, he had a huge impact in the San Diego State game. John Johnson's an active physical corner on the outside, one of the better players in that back end. I think that this is a pass rush driven defense. I think you look at the teams that are good at this level and any level of football, they are able to win with the pass rush, and they're able to scheme stuff open, but also win matchups. And you got that one dynamic guy in James Newby. He kind of sets the table for everybody else. You get better matchups, you get one-on-ones for other guys. If you're doubling and chipping, it takes, a guy out of the route tree and the route combination. So, James Newby is a guy that it'll be interesting to see, what the path is for him after this season. I'm kind of curious what he does. Does he stay there? I'm not sure. I think he has maybe 1 year of eligibility left if he wants to. But I think that this defense is going to create some intriguing challenges that Minnesota is going to have to adjust to from a protection standpoint. That's going to be the key in this game, protection. And can you run the football well on early downs?
Let's tell you quickly here, as we have Daniel House from GophersGuru.com with us. We want to talk about Onyx Fish. Hey, it's getting cold out. The ice is on the lake, on the river, and that means it's time to get out and get on the ice. Let Onyx Fish help you find that next best bite. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish. Sort by lakes, species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership info. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store on your phone or go online, onyxmaps.com/fish, to get more info about the app that's changing the game on the ice. And you can try it for free for 7 days because you're listening to the Go Gopher podcast. Daniel House with us, GophersGuru.com. Part of what triggered having you on this week was you did this deep dive. One, I'm learning a little bit too, which will help my own selfish reasons, help me get ready for the radio broadcast coming up a week from today. But also, you're putting some really cool stuff on your webpage and online. So tell us how Gopher fans can get a sneak peek of that. And, obviously for the whole year, you're creating content almost every day.
Yeah, there's literally stuff to talk about every day. This landscape of college football, it's never short on news. So transfer portal starts next month. So head over to gophersguru.com, $5 a month. We'll keep up on all the moves and talk about, the pieces that Minnesota's bringing in. Then bowl game preview be dropping next week. They kick off the holiday week with more insight on New Mexico, Minnesota, and bowl game matchups. So just kind of a next gen approach to covering Gopher sports. Going to do a little basketball in the winter here with Coach Medved. So excited for that. Basically, anything that you want about Gopher football and Gopher athletics, you can find it at the website.
Yeah, $5 a month.
Gophersguru.com.
What a bargain, too. $5 a month, man.
Yeah, it's cheaper. I'm like, God, I'm under Starbucks.
Yeah,
Like you go buy a
exactly.
dark roast at Starbucks, it's $5.75, man, to get a grande. I'm like, I'm below Starbucks.
That's
So
one
Gopher
drink.
fans, it's one drink a month.
Yeah.
I appreciate the support from Gopher fans. It's been fun to build it.
Yeah, you go to Starbucks or Caribou or wherever, you get one drink for $6. $5 gets you 30 or 31 days. Unless it's February, then you get 28 days in that month of the Gopher Guru. Unless it's a leap year, whatever. All right, but awesome webpage and all kinds of great content. So we appreciate you sharing some of that insight with us here on the Go Gopher podcast. Biggest keys to this game. What do you have for each team?
I think this is a game where the turnover battle is important. Who can take care of the football best? You look at short fields; they give teams tons of momentum in games. Look at New Mexico. If Minnesota were to turn the ball over early, get a short field, able to get a score, and then they can kind of sit on the ball, sustain some drives. Taking care of the football is something that Minnesota did well in November. Jake Lindsey did not throw an interception in the month of November, which is quite impressive. I think, as always, the turnover battle is key. I think pass game efficiency is going to be another thing. I mean, you look at these games, you study them in detail, you look at pass game efficiency. The team that's better in that category tends to win the majority of the time. I think that's kind of the underrated thing that nobody talks about. That, like, if you have the dynamic passing attack that can create the explosives, you're putting yourself in the best spot for the best. So I think whoever can pass the football with a little bit more efficiency to complement the run game. New Mexico's done a good job of building the run and pass together. And when they're able to tie those run actions with the pass, you look at the second level of their defense. The second level of defense gets influence, creates space, and you got explosive. So I would say those two things. And then for Minnesota, can they run the football? Is this a game where you can kind of insert yourself physically? I do think that Minnesota might have a slight edge in the physicality component, like that this is more of like a lateral disruptive twitch, fundamentally sound defensive line. Can Minnesota assert themselves with the Big Ten physicality along the line of scrimmage and run the football, sustain some drives? Long drives, I think they change the outcome of games. You can go on a 7-8 minute drive. It puts yourself in a good spot. So can Minnesota run the football in this game?
How would you assess just the talent level on both teams? We have a Big Ten team and a Mountain West team. Who are the NFL guys on the Gophers, do you think, future NFLers? And you don't have to go through a whole list, and I don't know how big the list is. And then how would that compare generally to New Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota obviously has a talent edge in the category of NFL. I mean, we don't know who's going to play in the bowl game. If Anthony Smith plays, NFL caliber player. Devin Eastern, if he plays, NFL caliber player. The future of Coy developing up. Kerry Brown's another guy back there. I mean, we're talking long term.
Yeah.
Maverick in the future. And you look at New Mexico, you're seeing like James Newby's obviously an NFL type of guy, Jackson Eck. So I'd say most of their NFL caliber talents on the defensive side of the ball. So, but hey, I think I would add Dorian Thomas to the tight end as well for New Mexico. I think he's a very good player. Maybe he elevates up, but connected teams matter. And I think that's what New Mexico has. They play connected, sound, fundamental football. And you might not have that talent advantage against everybody you play, but if your technique and your fundamentals and your system understanding and everybody playing in lockstep, that closes the gap. And that's how Jason X went from, building this team to a 10-win outfit right away. 9-win outfit. We're looking for a 10-win opportunity here.
it sounds that's a little like PJ Fleck's philosophy too, right? I mean, he's going to have to play up. If you're in the Big Ten and you're at Minnesota, you need a connected team if you want to go compete with the Penn States and the Ohio States and the Michigans and even your own rivals, Wisconsin and Iowa and Nebraska and when they've won their games, it's been a connected team. When they've had good years, it's been a connected team. I think they believe this year's connected too. So it's an interesting philosophy that sometimes you have to punch above your weight, and one way to do that is to all be on the same page. Also, I think too, don't you, Daniel, that the teams that want to be at the bowl games are it's almost like the NIT, the teams that were excited to go to the NCAA and got shafted. When they go to the NIT, they're not interested, and teams that are on the up, they are, and usually you look at who ends up. Well, it's not Madison Square Garden anymore, but you know what I'm saying. I think that's the one thing I tip my cap. Oh, well, there's many things, but in terms of bowl prep, why is PJ 6-0? He has been able to create an environment in which they take the bowl game seriously. It's important to them. They want to play. They want to spend another month together. It's a connected situation. And obviously we know New Mexico is going to be excited about this, so that's why I think it's going to be a good game. I never forget, Paul Johnson's last game. That was PJ's first bowl game here up in Detroit, Georgia Tech. And I'm thinking going in, they're going to be wanting to win one for Paul Johnson, and I'm not making a judgment on why the players for Georgia Tech didn't seem interested in that game. I'm mostly thinking they were in Detroit and they're from the South and they weren't all that interested in all of it. But I could tell 2 minutes into that game that was going to be a Gopher win. Georgia Tech really not interested in that game. I don't think that's going to be the case next Friday. I think both these teams are very interested in trying to win a football game.
Yeah, both these teams play hard. Their identity is built around playing hard, sound football, and I think that's the recipe for a good bowl game. Like you say, there are varying levels of engagement in bowl games. You probably play two of those Big 12 teams. Kleiman retires, Campbell goes to Penn State. How engaged and how much talent are on these teams? So New Mexico coming in creates a better matchup. I mean, I was sitting there going, okay, when I heard both those teams are going to play, I'm going, well, they're probably going to get New Mexico out of the Mountain West. That'll be a fun game. Like, I'm all for fun matchups. Let's put the best product out on the field. And, I know a lot of people are critical about them opting out of the bowl game and they got fined for it and all that. If you don't have a good enough team to put out on the field and you don't feel confident that, you're all in, let somebody else play, let somebody else come in and have that opportunity and let their fan base enjoy the opportunity to play a bowl game. I think that's New Mexico. It's a perfect example of how to handle the situation. So Minnesota, New Mexico, very similar in stylistic beliefs. I think this is going to be a fun game.
Yeah, and even last year, you look at Virginia Tech, they had, 20 opt-outs. That team was not the team that we saw all year. I forget now, but it was something like they had lost 5 games by a total of 7 points. Or if the game ended with at the 2-minute warning, they were going to be 10-2 or 9-3. And so they had some issues, and then all those guys opted out, and the coach was up in the air and all that stuff. The Gophers were in essence playing. Now the Gophers had a couple of opt-outs, but not like Virginia Tech, and the Gophers had a huge talent gap. So I think this will be different. I think we're going to have two teams that really want to win this. All right, so that is next week. We're recording here on Friday the 19th. It's Friday the 26th, day after Christmas. 3:30 is the kickoff Minnesota time down in Phoenix. Couple of quick things. We got about 10 minutes left on my Zoom before it runs out. I wanted to ask you real quick your general thoughts on the class of 2026 high schoolers. 31 have signed on to be Gophers, and I think it's around 15 to 20 are going to enroll early here in the next few weeks. So just generally, we don't have time. Sometime we'll have you on maybe in the spring to really dive into it. Yeah. But I know you follow it closely. What are your thoughts on the class?
Yeah, I put out a huge Gophers recruiting guide out online. It's got 6,000 plus words on all the players, including fits. So if you want to get the in-depth analysis of it, head over to the site. I would say the big theme that I took away from studying this class, Minnesota, shifting to versatile defensive hybrid players, guys that can do multiple different things schematically. You look at a player like Hudson Dunn, he can play off ball, on ball, mug around. Not just exclusive to the off-ball linebacker spot, but they can do a lot of things schematically with him. Justin Hopkins, he can play corner, nickel, safety, all the different position groups. You look at a lot of these players on the roster, the 2026 class that signed, they all have ability to play different spots. And I think that is specifically the case on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm interested to see how, they marry that up with their scheme. You do see some schematic influence of wanting to become more versatile. And I thought that was a noticeable trend with this group. Offensively, the offensive line, big point of emphasis, trying to get guys in here that can develop up, create some depth on that offensive line, because that's how you compete and sustain in the Big Ten, is having physical offensive line play. And I know that's been a point of emphasis. Ryan Estrada, I would say, is a guy that fans should watch. Home run hitting, explosive, great contact balance. Is he a guy that can come in and help them immediately? I think he's someone to definitely keep an eye on. And then the in-state guys, you got Howie Johnson, Roman Voss, Andrew Trout. I know that a lot of people talk about Voss and Johnson, but I think Trout has got interesting career arc opportunity. I think he's got all the traits that you're looking for in developmental offensive line. And it's just going to be about, getting the strength program, getting, the physicality piece. But I would definitely keep an eye on Andrew Trout. I'm bullish on his developmental track. I know Johnson and Voss everybody talks about them, but Trout deserves some love too.
Yeah, for sure. PJ had mentioned multiple times during his presser on the recruiting part of it, speed was something they were looking at. They wanted to get faster. Do you think that they accomplished that with the grouping here of this class?
Yeah, I feel like speed is something that every team's looking to these days. And you watch Minnesota play this year, I felt like they needed to be faster. You look at their games, that especially on offense, you got to have that one receiver that can take the top off defense to open things up schematically. They brought in a lot of receivers. Can one of those guys maybe help you right away? I know they're probably going to go to the transfer portal and add some wide receiver help. I think that's something that they're going to have to target. But it's tough to know. I like to see these guys in practice a little bit. Get a feel for in person what they can do. We're making too many declarations, but I definitely can tell that they want to add competition and emphasizing trying to become faster, which I think is the goal of every team in college football, is get as much speed as possible across your roster.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And yeah, we all, as we say, I think it was Jerry Kill that used to say, they're all paper tigers until we get to see them for sure, in spring ball first, and then as the bullets start flying in fall camp, and then into games as well. Transfer portal opens next month. What would you classify, if you were in charge of recruiting, what specific needs would you be targeting for the Gophers in the portal?
I would say defensive line's a big point of emphasis. It kind of Anthony Smith holds a big key here. And what does he do? PJ said, there really hasn't been a decision there yet. Even if Anthony does come back, they're going to have to hit the defensive line hard, interior and exterior, getting more pass rush juice there. Like we said, the wide receiver room need to add another skill set there. They had a lot of people enter the portal there in the back and the depth part of the depth chart there, a wide receiver. So, they need to get another impact guy, a specific skill set to, take some schematic attention off other people and open some stuff up with what Greg wants to do offensively. So I'd say defensive line and wide receiver are the big overarching ones. There's a few here or there, but that's would be my main point of emphasis.
Well, you're involved in the College Football Hall of Fame, National Football Foundation, and Greg Esslinger, former Gopher superstar offensive lineman, was inducted officially here in recent weeks out in Las Vegas at a ceremony. You got to go. How was that, and how cool was it to see Esslinger get inducted?
Well, first off, Greg's an outstanding person. I don't think people, if you've never met Greg Esslinger, I truly say this wholeheartedly, he's one of the most genuine people I've ever encountered. Literally one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He totally deserves this. It was fun to tell a story. I didn't know about his brother who passed away from leukemia at 13, and Greg was 6 at the time. And he kind of used him as motivation throughout his entire career. I did a feature on the website. If you want to go read it, I think a good read for young people that are, looking for a spark, trying to get looks in college football and kind of get their journey on the right path. Greg's an excellent example, coming from Bismarck, North Dakota, no interest, 0-star type of guy. sends VHS tapes all over the place. Glenn Mason sends a letter, goes to a camp, and basically balls out at the camp, gets an offer, and starts right away as a true freshman. And the funny part is, he thought maybe there's a chance he's going to start, like Joe Quinn, who works for the Gophers now. He was at practice talking to Greg and like, I think you're going to start. He's like, are you serious? I don't think so. And like, they got to right close to game day. And kid you not, he leaves his dorm room and he didn't know if he was going to play or not. But he found out like the day of the game, looking at the Star Tribune, that Esslinger to make first start, and saw the headline, and that's how he found out he was starting. So,
Crazy.
Just the career arc of Greg is like something you'll never see, especially in this landscape. But excited for him. Lots of former teammates down there. Matt Spaeth was there, so I believe he was roommates with Greg back in the day. So it was cool to see all those people connect and just how genuine they are toward Greg and excited for him.
Awesome. It was great. Yeah. And, it's also good for the program. One, it was good because he was a great player, but two, that's something you put your, hang your hat on. You can go out and say, hey, we've got an offensive lineman that played this, after in recent years, the last couple of decades, who's now in the Hall of Fame. So it's pretty cool. Give us the webpage one more time. And I know you mentioned you got stuff on Greg Esslinger, you got stuff on the recruiting class. That recruiting manual is the best every year for sure. So let us know again how we can find it all.
You can find it at gophersguru.com. $5 a month gets you access to the
Awesome. Hey, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Always great to catch up with Daniel House. Daniel, thank you.
Appreciate you, Grimmer.
All right, there he is, Daniel House. It's episode 201. My thanks to Gopher Guru Daniel House for spending time with us and breaking down the Gopher Bowl game opponent, New Mexico. Once again, Daniel provides great content every day, and if you're a Gopher fan, you'd be advised to subscribe to his content at gophersguru.com. Episode 201 is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. Cubs, a proud supporter of Gopher Athletics for over 20 years, and a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast. Cub, bigger savings on the items you love. Shop happy. And OnX Fish also sponsors the show. Happy fishing from OnX Maps. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please right now click that subscribe button or the follow button to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to follow and free to subscribe and free to listen at any time. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, let us know that with some positive feedback on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.